Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very empowering show coming right up with special guest, Dr. Emma-Mardlin, and she's here today to share with us her new book, Out of Your Comfort Zone, Breaking Boundaries for a Life Beyond Limits. Now, Dr. Emma is a clinical therapist and founding partner in the Pinnacle Practice. She's internationally renowned for her work as an author, trainer, and practicing clinician in London and Nottingham. She has profoundly changed the lives of many people once plagued by intense fears, phobia, life limitations, and anxiety. She's also the author of Mind-Body Diabetes Type 1 and Type 2. So let's welcome to the show, Dr. Emma-Mardlin.
Hello, thank you for inviting me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here.
What a joy it is to have you here and to talk about your new book. And my goodness, you have to be so excited because I know it's getting some really great reviews.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's been quite well received at the moment. And I know a lot of people are giving me very good feedback about something I call the zone test that's in the book, which is quite exciting, which I'm sure your listeners will get to gauge what that's all about.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Well, and so I wanted to just, before we get too far into that, just talk with you about what inspired you to write this book.
Well, everything I do professionally on a daily basis and also personally, I'm taken out of my own comfort zone, but also I see clients regularly that actually they're in a particular comfort zone and, you know, they're having their challenges and they can be so easily sucked into those and life doesn't move on and progress. However, once they take that opportunity and embrace that small window of change to make that decision to either, you know, come and get help or go on a journey of self-discovery and personal evolution, the results are phenomenal as they then progress just from that very small moment of that decision, what that opens up for them. And so it is really about how when you do step out of your comfort zone and make those changes, you really push yourself forward in life. So I wanted to convey that in a book, and there's so much I talk about and I talk about with people. So I really wanted to encapsulate that all in one so people have a step-by-step, easy guide to take them through the journey of self-discovery and even realize what their fears or limitations are, because we always talk about, you know, getting rid of them, releasing them, conquering them, which is great. And, you know, the book deals with all that. But sometimes we don't even know what they are and even how to tackle them and even what's holding us back. So the book helps with that and addressing it as it goes through to the point where people can then be in a space to realize what they actually want from life and what is the real core blueprint that they then can align with. And then, as I said, the results are just phenomenal once you have released all fears and holdbacks and know exactly what you want, how you can really achieve that and actually determine your own future through something I talk about called the quantum world, which again, I could really go on and digress. So I'll stop there. But in a nutshell, that's why I chose to write the book.
Well, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit, and I'd love for you to kind of expand on this a little bit more. But what would be some of the reasons that we would want to push our boundaries?
Well, I think it's about taking us to the next level and where we can go in life, because anything is absolutely possible for any one of us. So whatever somebody wants to do, sometimes we're, you know, from being born and, you know, going throughout school, we can be limited from the things a teacher may say to us or parents may say to us, or you know, you can't do that, or, you know, that's not the kind of person you are. And we can easily be labeled and put into a box. So if we grow up with those kind of thoughts, then we just become what we've been led to believe. However, if we actually push our boundaries, there's a whole new world out there where anything can be achieved. And that's what I want to get across to people, so they don't have to stay in a particular comfort zone. Once you just make even the smallest changes, the entire world around you changes. And it's about taking people out of their own internal reality, if that's not as they want it, of course, and pushing those boundaries so they can create something really exciting, and they can live the life that maybe they've just dreamed of. So I always say, don't have dreams, have expectations, because it's perfectly possible.
Well, I think that's very encouraging for a lot of people where maybe they get kind of stuck in a rut and they're going, gosh, things are never going to change for me, or how do I make changes? Because we hear about a lot of times where people talk about the comfort zone. So how do people determine what their level is in the comfort zone?
Well, that's what I briefly mentioned in terms of the zone test, which I've developed, which is an introspective quiz that, through a very specific series of questions, and this took me some good time to do, detects people's current comfort zone level. So they are basically attributes of each personality and thinking type that a particular comfort zone is consistent with. So, right from people being in a comfort zone where they fear change and they don't want to move out of that. They're happy with, just doing day to day what they do, the general humdrum, and, they don't move on any further in life, yet they're really discontent. To then an exploring zone where people are looking at pushing boundaries, but they've still got quite a lot of fear and not really quite sure what they want from life. And then we've got the breaking boundaries zone, which is really then progressing further forward in life. So, for example, most people that would be progressing and pushing through the book would be in the breaking boundaries zone. But that takes us then right to a zone 0 personality, which is something I focus on throughout the book, in terms of a personality that has an unstoppable mindset, that really goes out there, has achieved what they want to achieve. And that's not to say they never have problems, curveballs, or challenges that come their way, but what they don't do is fear them. So they don't have the anxiety that something might happen. They don't focus on the what ifs of a situation. They go out there and they get what they want, and they don't let nothing or no one get in their way. So really, it's all about working through this particular quiz with the questions that actually determine where people are at the moment. And then as they work through the book, they can then take the zone test at the end of it to see where they've come from, how they've progressed. And the actual questions will also help them to realize where they need to go back to, certain areas they need to work on, and even help to identify those limitations in the first place.
Well, and so it's great because people can have a baseline to get an idea of where they are and where they're,
Sure.
And by the time they finish the book, they take the test again, and they're, another test, and they're able to see like how far they've traveled in regards to their comfort level. And I think it's important because a lot of times people, they just don't know how to get from here to there. And your book really outlines that, so that it's doable for people.
Exactly. Well, change is so daunting, and it's so easy for life to sweep us by much of the time, because we're in a very fast-paced, 24/7, constantly doing things. There's no switch off, especially with all the technology that we have today. So it's very easy for people to be in a rut, and, it's nobody's fault. That's just the way life goes, and it's become even faster. So this just helps to go through that process and allow yourself that space and that time to actually develop and progress, and actually think about who you really want to be, rather than just being what's being created for many reasons.
Mm-hmm. And in your book, you talk about that there are, and I'd love for you to expand on this, that there are 2 emotions in the world. What are those?
Yes, that's right. I say there's 2 emotions, that's love and that's fear. And everything else is just derived from each one of those. So derived from fear is anger, frustration, hurt, guilt, essentially all the negative emotions. Derived from love is joy, happiness, laughter, excitement, and everything that really does give you those positive emotions. So it's literally, we can just divide it into either two. And it's those, everything that comes from fear, we don't need in our life. That's just what's holding us back. So it is really finding out specifically what kind of fears people have. And, limitation would also be a fear of some sort. Everything ultimately pertains to a fear that's some form of negative emotion holding people back. And we want to focus on the love.
Mm-hmm. Well, and isn't it great when people know that they can then break things down to, like, am I in fear or am I in love?
Yes, absolutely. And that really helps distinguish what certain problems are as well. Because it's easy to think if someone's just outraged by something really angers them, to then actually know that that's just a fear of some sort really helps to analyze themselves in terms of, well, if I'm so angry about this particular issue, what is it I'm really fearing? So it takes it inside and it becomes more introspective than looking outside and thinking, why does that person or that thing make me so angry? Really, what's your fear deep inside? So it helps to bring it back in. So then obviously if people look to themselves as what it is that's really bothering them, that's when they can take control and do something about it.
Well, I think that's so important. And there's a very powerful section in your book. I mean, there are several of them, but there's one that really stood out to me. It's a section that talks about word exchange. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit about that with our listeners, because I think from an exercise perspective, it really does shift people's, maybe they're in habits, kind of shifts that thinking.
Absolutely. Well, the language we use is really an indicator of what's going on inside our heads. So first of all, that's probably a scary thing to many people. But yes, so take things like problems. A lot of people will say, oh, I have this problem, I have that problem. But once we actually replace a word, that particular word, problems, with, say, challenges or opportunities. So instead of problems in your life, you have challenges. That helps to actually shift our thinking, because a challenge implies something that we can actually get over. So it no longer becomes a problem. It's something solvable. It's just a challenge. It's just a hurdle, something that we can actually get over and find opportunity in. So the word exchange is taking what I call negative words, words that have a more negative connotation to them, and replacing them with power words, words that have a more positive connotation and help us to see things differently just by the use of language. So anxiety is a big one. So a lot of people, especially on social media, will say that, they have anxiety, they're very anxious about something. And I would say if you replace that word with thinking that it's not anxiety, it's a conscientiousness, and it's actually a good thing that your mind is working properly and simply just wants to alert you to something that's not quite right. So anxiety is just a feeling, but once we think about that differently and use the language as that I'm conscious that something's not quite right and there's something I need to address, whether that's something tangible external in reality, or whether that's maybe something physically that's wrong with the body, or something psychologically that's a trigger inside not making you feel quite right. So you can see already how just a change in language helps you to think differently and have a more positive outlook on things. But as I said, there's the word exchange is a whole list of words I have that are common negative words that I've observed that people use a lot of, me included sometimes, because we're kind of programmed from, being very young to use certain words. And this is really about replacing them with the positive power words to have a different take on life.
Do you find when people do that things start to make immediate shifts?
Yes, definitely. You can actually feel the energy. As I said, the big one of the most common examples is problems. If you think you're weighted down by problems, or do you have a few challenges?
Mm-hmm.
You can feel the energy in terms of, how a certain word makes you feel heavy and negative, or how a certain word makes you feel positive and creates more energy and hope, I guess.
Well, when you look at problems as, something that's more, that provides more of an opportunity, I mean, then it becomes this problem-solving issue. You kind of look at it in a different light. You're like, well, there's something here that's a benefit for me.
Yeah, exactly. I think especially in the early part of the book, I talk a lot about something called reframing, which is essentially taking some pretty negative things and spinning them round into a positive. And the book goes through a lot of how you can see things differently and the ways to do that, the actual how to do that. Because a lot of the time, especially in my industry, people say, well, turn it round and, look at the positives, but they don't often explain actually how to do that. So the book does thoroughly give lots of ways to change habitual thinking, because like I said, we can all get used to using certain negative words, but once we condition our minds for the positive words and the positive use of language, that actually shifts and alters the brain chemistry. So it is actually a scientific way of how using language actually shifts the biochemistry of the brain to actually feel more positive as well. So there are lots of benefits there.
Well, I'm so glad that you have that outlined in the book. It's the first time I've seen that in a book, and I was really delighted to see it. It's really, I think, helpful for people to make those associations and then those shifts. It's like, okay, well, if I have problems, what am I, replacing that with? And you give them examples what they can do.
Sure. Well, some things on the face of it would seem very simple, but yet it's those simple things that aren't actually done. And sometimes the tiniest changes make the biggest difference, because it's a start. It opens things up to change. And actually, change is one of the most feared things. People do actually fear change itself. So, just starting incrementally, and that's how the book starts, with keeping things more simple, building. We have the resilience builders that help increase confidence and get people making those small changes that then go on to create the huge, enormous changes that people can affect in their lives.
Well, and you touched on this earlier, and I'd love for you to kind of explain what this is. You touched on true core blueprint. So what is that?
That's what you're actually meant to be or meant to do in terms of deep down what you really want to do. So an example of this would be when I was 14, I was told I would make an excellent barrister. So that went in my mind, and I thought, oh, great, I was told I was going to be good at something. So, yeah, I'll go down that route. And, right up into going to university and going to law school, I thought, yeah, I want to be a barrister. And actually, that was because, it was something I was told I would be good at, rather than actually what I wanted to do. When I think back to then when I was really little and what my actual personality is like, I really wanted to be a doctor, to go on and to help people in different ways. So that actually was my real core blueprint to go on and to help people, whereas being a barrister was something I got sidetracked with because somebody told me I was good at it. Now, if I look at why I got sidetracked off my blueprint, that was because at the time I had more lower confidence. So being told I was really good at something at school was exciting for me, and that's what swayed me, but it wasn't really my core blueprint. So it's going back to roots and finding out, your core personality, what you really want to be. If you had no limitations, holdbacks, or comfort zone, who or what could you be? And that's really what we're talking about with core blueprint.
That's so important, because I think everybody has a story like that, where someone has told them, you'll never be good at this, or you'll be good at this. And so it's all this programming that we have from other people, and a lot of times they're well-meaning, that have kind of spoken words in our life that we've taken as truths. And so when we look at those and go, gosh, what is it that I really want to do, which you talk about in your book, helps people to really kind of navigate through those and really see what the possibilities are for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how many people are, say, medical doctors because their parents are medical doctors, but they have no enthusiasm for the job? And it's a hard job to do. You have no enthusiasm. But I've met lots of medical doctors where they will just go on and in a mundane fashion, and you can just see the passion's not there. They don't really enjoy the job. And occasionally I've actually asked, do you, out of interest, are your parents doctors? Because they've said, oh, yeah, they are. They think it's a strange question, but then most people think I am strange, so that's nothing different. But finding out is really interesting, because it tells me a lot in terms of they're doing it out of a necessity, or because their parents wanted them to do something, rather than their actual choice. You see, they may be doing something like medicine when actually they've got a real passion for something totally random, something maybe like archaeology or something, and really wanted to study history or, the arts rather than the sciences. And because they've been swept along, especially in a career like that, as you can imagine, then, when have they had the time to really think, actually, what's my core blueprint? What do I really want to do? And all the person experiences is being discontent and unhappy. They don't really know why or what that's all about. But the book helps to go on this journey of self-discovery and realize who you are and who you want to be. And once you take those limitations and holdbacks and fears away, everything becomes so much clearer.
In your book, you talk about self-awareness, and is that kind of where you're seeing it kind of blend in, where people are looking at their lives in such a way that they're really kind of pulling these things back of what other people have said and coming to kind of that core blueprint that you're talking about, and really discovering who they are?
Oh, definitely. A heightened awareness is really about getting to know yourself inside and out. What triggers you have, what makes you tick, what gives you that excitement. And sometimes that may take time to even surface if it's been downtrodden that much. But I have the self-discovery model, and that's going through a series of lots of questions in different aspects of life to help a person to learn about themselves and establish about their personality, what fits with them. So even something as simple as determining if someone's an introvert or an extrovert. If, say, somebody's an extrovert, but they've been working in a library all their lives just because it pays the way, then they would be discontented, because it's probably not giving that ability to be the extrovert and to, showcase maybe other talents they have and different things. So whilst that's a basic example, the book and the model really goes through that, so people can pull out every single aspect of what you need to know about yourself, and being aware of what will make you actually happy. So even on that particular section, people can give themselves a fulfillment score, and we do some unconscious work in terms of what comes from deep inside that gut feeling of how people are feeling at that moment in time. An instantaneous, how happy are you? So if I said now on a scale with 100%, how fulfilled are you? And it's the first thing that comes to mind. And that's something we use again as a base in terms of how happy and fulfilled is somebody. But we also look at different methods in terms of how somebody can become more self-aware, in terms of really taking notice of those internal feelings and what they actually mean, in terms of how people can learn to meditate in certain ways that gives that internal space in the mind to be able to go deep and really start understanding yourself. Because a lot of time people don't even give themselves the time and space to be able to look at who they really are in a different way of life. As I said, we can just get swept away with things. So there's lots of ways on how to develop a self-awareness that's also enjoyable as well for the process. I think, from the work I do, people really do enjoy going on this journey of self-discovery and actually finding out about themselves.
Yeah, I know I've been doing that. It's like a lifelong journey, but it becomes easier, and your book, Out of Your Comfort Zone, really helps people to get to that next level, in their lives so they can continue to grow and evolve. And I think I have time for one more question. Hopefully it's not too loaded here. So, in your book, you talk about Zone 0 personality. What is that, and what can we learn from them?
Well, that's somebody that has no comfort zone. And I don't mean that in terms of they never have curveballs thrown their way in life, but they don't fear them. They go forth and they embrace everything that they can. So they're never afraid of failure. They're never afraid of change. They're never afraid of the unknown. So obviously most people, they're not actually afraid of the unknown. It's what they think about the unknown. So that can become quite paradoxical sometimes. But Zone 0 is really about grasping life, and a lot of the time it formulates, I have 25 markers of a Zone 0 personality. So they're things that people can aspire to do, because ultimately the Zone 0 personality is what's going to give you exactly what you want and lead the life you want to lead. So sometimes, might be the kind of people that others look at and think, gosh, they really seem to have life sussed. They seem to have everything. They seem to just deal with everything. They're the kind of people I'm talking about. So a very famous example would be somebody like Sir Richard Branson, Warren Buffett, people that have overcome life challenges as well. They know what they want, they go for it, and they don't let nothing or nobody get in the way. So even people that have healed themselves against the odds, they've been given terminal diagnosis and they've gone, no way, I'm going to heal myself, I'm not giving up, and they've gone forward and they've done that, even though it's, they've had to work through their fears, because we always get fears come to us because we have natural fears. But the Zone 0 personality knows how to handle them. And yeah, they may experience negative emotions, but they have a very short refractory period. And by that, I mean, they have a very short period of time in which they will just express the negative emotion, shout, scream, kick off, do what they need to do. But then that's over with, and then they'll go and they'll work on what they need to work on, not let it stop them in life.
Yeah. Well, there's so much information in your book, Out of Your Comfort Zone. It's such a great read. Dr. Emma, where can people connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your book?
Well, I have the website, which is all the W's, outofyourcomfortzone.uk, or you can find me on Dr-M on social media, or dr-m.co.uk as well. But actually people can take the zone test for free as well if they visit outofyourcomfortzone.uk. They can take that for free there, and then that's actually connected up to all my other sites as well, the practice site, my personal site. So everything's all under one roof there for people.
Well, Dr. Emma, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Dr. Emma. It has been such a pleasure to spend this time with you, and of course, to talk about your new book, Out of Your Comfort Zone: Breaking Boundaries for a Life Beyond Limits. Again, if you'd like to connect with Dr. Emma, you can at her website, dr-em.co.uk, and we'll have the link below. If you're looking for Out of Your Comfort Zone, it's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie bookstores. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.